So tonight I wanted to talk about Psalms 3. And I know I've been kind of dwelling on this one for a little while. I tried to make it a practice to try to write about a verse a day, and it's kind of fallen through. A lot of things that I'd planned on doing this year have already fallen through, and we're halfway through the year, so that's I guess it's expected. I'm ahead on books, reading, but that's about it. But I looked back at my notes of Psalms 3, and I found it kind of felt, normal theme, it felt kind of personal, like I was reading it for myself a little bit. Which, that's kind of the point. It's a historical text as well, though, so it's very interesting to see, who wrote it and why. So let's start there. In verse 1 of Psalm 3, it says it's a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son. And I was like, oh, he did that. He had to do that again. He had to flee again. I haven't studied David enough to remember all these things. So trying to figure out kind of a historical background of it, and then getting kind of a spiritual look at it and how it applies to us. That's kind of where I wanted to go with this. So it says, he starts with the exclamation of his woes. He says, how they are increased that trouble me. Many are they that rise up against me. And historically, this actually goes to 2 Samuel 15:12. 2 Samuel 15:12, it says, Absalom sent for Ahithophel. Ahithophel? I got it then. Good enough. The Gilgalite, David's counselor from his city, even from Gilo, while he offered sacrifices, and the conspiracy was strong. That's the part where I wanted to kind of focus on. The conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. So he's winning people over to his side, taking power from his father. He's basically starting a revolution to dethrone his father. Not only is King David here losing his place as king, but his own son is rebelling against him. So I'm trying to apply some of that, I guess not necessarily that part, but the rest of the chapter is how this applies to us, because obviously we're kings in our own lives, queens in our own lives, and we need to dethrone that person. That's a different message. But I have to imagine that Absalom was close to his father to some degree. And for someone that close to you to turn their back on you and to speak evil against you and to turn other people's hearts against you, that hurts. That's got to be rough. Especially and when I apply it to myself, there's people I respected. There's people I trusted that were supposed to be teachers to me. And they spoke nothing but evil behind my back. And it was painful. Verse 2 says, Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. So even to add to the pain of having people turn against you, these people believing in the same God that you do now say he's beyond help even from God. That's pretty far. So it's kind of a reinforcement of that verse before. Those against me increase, and their opinion of me is not good. For someone who believes in God and by themselves, and for others to be counted as a follower of Jesus, for them to say, God's done with him, that's devastating. How far does one have to go to be that far gone? For God to be done working on you, I mean, I hope when God is done working with me, I breathe my last breath, because that's where I want to be. When he's done with me, it's like, all right, let's go. That's it. That's the mark I'm going for. It's good to be liked by our peers, to have good things said about you in the workplace, good things said about you in your community, your neighborhood. Everybody's, got nothing bad to say about you. I attribute that to my own personal father, my natural father. Everybody I've ever met, they say, "Oh yeah, I like Bert. He's a good dude. He's a really nice guy. He'll do anything for you. He's super helpful. He's funny." I try to be all those things. I do, and I fall short a lot when I even just trying to hold myself up to my natural father. Imagine me trying to hold myself up, to the standard of the spiritual father. It's just, it's tough. So the other thing that kind of compounds, and I'm kind of just going off my own knowledge here, the other thing that compounds the troubles with David being David is, he was in a very public spotlight of a place to be, because he was the ruler, he was the king. So, you look at kings and queens of our age and the tabloids and the celebrity that's made of them, even here in America, it's like, what do I care what the UK's doing? We fought a revolutionary war to be done with that. Now we've got it still in our supermarket checkout line. It's like, I don't care. But the idea is that he was a celebrity, so it was the court of public opinion, we'll say, that also was going against him. So, and he also had, because he wore that crown, he set the pace for his nation, very much like our president sets our pace for our nation. And this isn't going to age at all, I think. When I talk about the president, I could say this was filmed back in 2016, and it would have been a completely different guy. The position is what's important, and how that person represents that position is also very much what's important. I was born in '86, so Reagan was the president when I was born. And that was from what I can tell historically, one of the last kind of a standard bearer of a president that had. I'm sure there were people that didn't like him. I'm sure there were people that could think of some scandal that happened to him, whatever. It's nothing compared to the things we go through nearly every day now with the presidents we've had. Even going through grade school, I remember Bill Clinton and a lot of things going on, scandals there, and I was like, that stuff's been burned into my memory now too. But our current president, the leader of our nation, he's Catholic, right? Except he's not. He claims to be of the faith. He claims to know Jesus, and then at the same time, at the other side of his mouth, he says that it's okay for women's health, which is also known as murder. It's okay for trans rights because they're people too, and I agree, they're people, sure, but we're being too accepting of something that is evil, of something that is a perversion. This Easter even, it was, it's Happy Easter. Oh wait, no, it's Trans Visibility Day. Are you kidding me? He probably didn't even realize what he was doing because he's just in that place in life. But the obvious priorities of the administration, not just him, but the administration, is sick. It's sickening. And all of this is very woeful. I know I'm starting off really great on a Wednesday night. I don't want to have a complete message of despair and evil and how terrible things are going for everybody, because life actually is not that bad on a micro scale. It's just the overall track that we're kind of going on is going sideways. But I guess I'm going for the idea of the sadness and hopelessness that David is going through. He's making his case known to God. And that's where I go. I start on the positive swing now. We'll go into the positive end of this message here, and it gets better. I mean, that's, spoiler alert, it gets better. Verse 3 says, "But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory and the lifter of my head." The word shield here brings about the thought of protection, something to stand behind. Not only is it a physical sense that David needs this shield, but he is also a protector of our souls. And David likens God to this shield many times. And I'm just going to read off the verses. You don't have to show them, but if we're going for notes or anything, we look at Psalm 18:2. It says, the word is buckler in that one. "In whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation." Psalm 28:7. "The Lord is my strength and my shield." Psalm 119:114. That's a long one. "Thou art my hiding place and my shield. I hope in thy word." And it's also worth mentioning that this isn't necessarily an original thought to just David in the books. And I say books plural. Genesis 15:1, Abram, not Abraham, but Abram, so before he changed his name, or got his name changed, I should speak correctly. It says, "After these things the word of the Lord came unto Abraham in a vision, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward." All of these words, all the times he says shield or buckler, it's the exact same Hebrew word every single time. He's saying, I am your protector. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean bad things can't happen to us. David's on the run from his own son. There's your proof. But when David says, "You are my shield," this is not just postulating. This is it's a statement not just of faith, but a statement of being sure. My glory and the lifter of my head. It's under none of our own strength or power that we accomplish anything worth any glory that lasts. God alone is our glory. God alone can carry us through the hard times. Not only does God allow us to go through the hard times, but he asks us to rejoice in those hard times. And that sounds very counterproductive. I'm going to make it really hard for you, and I need you to be happy through the whole thing. You know, the way I've been trying to put it in my own mind as I am going through those hard times, as I am looking not literally down the barrel, I try to think of it that we are being counted worthy to be given that trial. Because what's the opposite of that? The opposite is what these people are saying about David. Well, God's done with him. God's not done with him. God is not done with me. If he left me alone, I'd be terrified. Never to improve, never to go higher, never able to prove myself in faith and circumstance. And Sunday, Pastor was talking about the wedding feast. And all of those people were called. And it says many are called. Every one of those people that were initially called made excuses. God counted them worthy, and they said, I got other things. I got other things to do. So we're going through that hard time, maybe even they're hard times of your own making. You know, you've made your bed, that type of thing. So what do we do? What do we slog through it and say, I'll get myself through this? Or do we go, God, I need help. Like, I have a plan, and if you got any directions, please, put the line on the ground, and I'll try to walk it as best I can. And that's what David is doing. He says, I cried unto the Lord with my voice, in verse 4. And he heard me. I know I'm getting choked up on that. I shouldn't, but it's... he heard me. But it takes that initial outcry. If we're silent, he won't really hear us. I mean, he'll hear us, he'll hear our hearts, but I don't think I could ever be silent in my heart. I'm barely silent in my voice. And as I've said before, we have to speak to him. And I've said before, we have, in that crying out, there has to be some sort of a sacrifice. There's a requirement of us to give him something, to that sacrifice of praise. And I've said, I think I said it maybe a couple messages ago, that the more worth something to you that you sacrifice, the greater the possibility of return, not the guarantee of return, but the possibility of return. We watch those missionary videos once a month, and those people, they sacrificed their entire lives because they were convinced and convicted through the Spirit that they had to go to wherever they were being called, and they had to preach the word against anything else and anybody else telling them, don't do that, that's crazy. They sacrificed something so big. The next part is what God does after we have cried out, and he hears us. That's the end of verse 4 there. And that word heard really does give me a hope. It shows a definite action. He heard me. Not he might hear me, not, like I always joke about, I'm thinking of the flavor of, you ever try the sparkling waters, that flavor of LaCroix or whatever flavor? It's like somebody yelled the word cantaloupe in the room next over, and then they bottled it and sold it. That's the taste of it. It's that and some static on the television that you get in the back of your throat. I do like it though. God actually does love to hear from us. He wants to know our joys and sadnesses. He's truly the example of what being a good father is all about. And I mean, we're in the Father's Day month here. That's coming up. When my kids come to me, I try to put down my phone or my book, or I pause the show I'm watching, or whatever it is I'm doing. I want to hear what they have to tell me, because they came to me and they wanted to talk to me. They wanted to tell me something, and I want to hear it. I don't care what it is. I'm just happy they still want to talk to me. I mean, a couple more years and they're going to be just like, eh. They're only small for a short time. I try to take the chance to build what I can. When they inevitably become bigger, I hope they call. And I wrote it in my notes. I said it might be a Minecraft fact, or something about a cartoon they watched, or something that one of their friends did outside. It's whatever. I want to hear it. I want to enjoy their childhood with them a little bit when I can. And God is the same way with us. He is truly a father. He wants to hear from his children. verses 5 and 6. We're just going to go for 5 at the moment here, and we'll lead it right through like I've been doing. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. Now that seems pretty simple. You went to sleep and woke up. Great. Well, think of the circumstances that he's under at this time. First off, he's been pursued before. He's been hunted after. Yet, that's got to be stressful, right? Have people searching for you through the hills and everywhere, trying to find you to capture you and make your life not peaceful. Well, then your life then by default becomes not peaceful. Yet, he goes to sleep. He said, I slept and I awaked. There were nights in my old house where I had a rough time sleeping. After my house was broken into, we had the glass cleaned up. I wasn't even home when it happened. I still couldn't sleep for a week because I was waiting for something else to come hurling through a window. And not only that, but my kids are right upstairs. It's tough. It's really nerve-wracking. The gunshots in the middle of the night type of thing, that, it's not necessarily the gunshots that really scared me. It was my heart going from, 50 resting beats a minute or whatever your heart rate goes down to when you're actually in a sound sleep to you're awake, like 120 beats a minute. You're working out right now because, it's a jolt. It's probably when I started losing my hair on the corners here. I looked at some older pictures and went, oh, there's Grandpa Bud. I found him. Everybody says it's your mother's father. That's the hair you get. This is definitely Grandpa Bud. I'll show you some. I'll have to find some old pictures. Because the hairline used to be right straight across and it was really nice. I liked it. Frank's laughing. He's like, what's that? So, the thought of this resting, the word sustained, that's what I wanted to go for. It also translates to the word prop. And when I'm thinking of resting, well, what do you use for a prop? Well, you use a pillow, right? You prop your head up on a pillow and you sleep. And it helps keep your neck from going out of line. So God was literally, figuratively, whatever you want to call it, David's pillow in this verse. He knew that God was his rest. And he took it almost to the literal sense that he was able to actually go to sleep and wake up and not have to worry about waking up in the middle of the night being pursued and chased or being captured. David says, I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people in the next verse. Our strife can be with one person or a company or a small group of people or even within ourselves. Our problems can be everything against us, just like David. He had better than half a nation after him. Yet he took comfort in God, knowing that he was in the right and that God honored the righteous and that followed his command. Verses, I'm going to do 7 and 8 here. I'm just going to read through the notes I've got. It says, Arise, O Lord, save me. O my God, for thou hast smitten all mine enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongeth unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people. This is the heartfelt cry that David sends up to God. This is the cry he just got done writing that God will hear. Save me. Though David himself knows that he has not raised even a righteous fist in defense, he credits God for the entire victory over the ungodly, striking them in their faces and breaking their teeth. The exact phrasing here is very much purposeful. The face is an important part of our outward appearance to other people. If we had unexplained marks or bruises, it's noticed by other people, and they kind of go, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you? What happened to your face? Are you okay?" That type of thing. So if you've got, a big red handprint on the side of your face, people are going to want to know what you did to deserve it. And then on top of that, we're breaking teeth, and that takes a very large step towards permanence. We only get the one set of adult teeth in our life. Luckily, we have a lot of medical advancements in our age, but that's the idea. Is just this. You're not only marked, but then you lose something that you're not going to get back when you go against someone that is in God's hands. And a side note, I wrote in here, if you ever get a chance to go see the actual production of David for Sight and Sound, I'm sure most people here have seen the Sight and Sound thing, and you can rent it online. It's not nearly as neat as seeing, all the way over to here, the production of David. My parents were able to take us to do that a couple summers ago, and it was amazing. But their main chorus in that play is that the battle belongs to the Lord, and this is kind of where a lot of this that comes into play. Is repeated in almost all the Psalms of David. It's whenever there's fighting involved, whenever there's warfare involved in any of David's thoughts, he says, God's already got it. And so this is where he's putting all of his faith. This is also why he's able to do that resting that he did. Ultimately, only God can save. And only God can give that type of a blessing. And thank God for that gift. David understands trials, and through this psalm, he cries out to God, and at the same time, he knows it's already handled. God is always acting for us in a way that we should respond well to. He gives us trials and difficulties not to be mean, but to build us up stronger. And thank God for that hardship. Thank God for his mercy in our trials, and thank God for making us worthy to be near him. Because that's ultimately what it's for, right? Ultimately, he wants to refine us. He wants to make us better and more worthy of being closer. And that's, taking it back to the marriage supper is like, I'm going to sit as far away as possible and be brought up, because that's where if I get to go, I'd like, I want that invitation. If that invitation is open to me, I want it, and I don't want excuses. And I said that Sunday afternoon. I said, I don't want to give an excuse. You take that from me. I don't want it. And part of this, the inspiration for this message was just through my own troubles over the past year or so, and it's also for a friend of mine who I think needs an encouraging word. And hopefully I'm going to be able to send this to him as a link or something. But I hope he gets to see it, and just know that if you stay on the path that God's given you, if you put yourself into the Word and study it earnestly and study it, wanting more, God will see that in your heart, and I think He'll open doors and He'll show things to you that you've never understood before. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting. I've probably been here, 16 years almost now, and it's still, everything is still fresh, everything is still new. And it just keeps going. And it's so great. I'm so happy to be here, actually, thinking about that. So, amen.